Hey everybody! So today I thought I would go through what I have done in order to bring my eczema under control to the point that it's at now. So I very rarely itch anymore. Having said that, look, I'm just scratching my head. I very rarely itch anymore, and I have predominantly, I would say, dry skin now rather than patches of eczema. I will get cracked hands in winter because the temperature's changing, things like that. So it'll be my hands and my feet really that are mostly involved at the moment. Other than that, I've pretty much cleared it from most of my body. So I've done a lot of things, and I thought it would be wise to share that with you, and also share with you the journey from sort of me being a child, a baby really, taking you through what happened in my early years, and then coming to where I made a switch to look internally and look to heal from the inside out rather than hoping that just dealing with it on the outside would work. So when I was born, I had eczema. My mum and dad didn't really have any experience of this, so it was very much left in the hands of taking advice from medical professionals, so from doctors. So they were advised to eliminate dairy from my diet. I think when I was roughly about 2 years old or something like that, possibly a bit younger, I don't know, but when I was very small anyway. So eliminating dairy, quite a few years ago, was pretty difficult because that meant that I would need to have an alternative. Soy milk was really not very widely available, to be honest. I didn't. Goat's milk was recommended, but I really disliked that, and still do to this day. so that wasn't really an option. So I ended up with soy milk, but obviously, eating out, going on holiday anywhere, we'd have to take stuff with us, so it was a bit of a pain, to be honest. So dairy was eliminated, and then as it sort of transpired, as time went on, other foods needed to be eliminated as well. So E numbers, anything that wasn't natural was, my mum tried to eliminate that from my diet because she noticed that if I was eating anything that's sort of either brightly coloured, or it would have an effect on my eczema. So those things were being eliminated from my diet, which is very difficult for a parent to do because your child isn't always with you. So when they're at school, they make their own choices. If you do a packed lunch for them, then fair enough. But I used to have school dinners, and I was a little bit sneaky apparently when I was a child. So I would actually, my mum would get the menu from school as to what was on, and she would tell them what I could and couldn't have. I had a very good school, so that was good. But I would try and convince the dinner ladies that I was allowed cheese. And this was not allowed, basically. So so they had to ring my mum. I do not remember any of this, but she told me that story one day. I thought it was quite funny. Desperate need for cheese. So there was various things that were eliminated in my diet. My eczema got a little bit better, but still it wasn't brilliant. I went to when it got bad, I would go to the doctors. They would give me steroid creams. So I would use the steroid creams, which would control that patch of eczema. But then I would stop using the steroid creams because you're not meant to use them for very long. You'd stop using it, and then the eczema would come back. As I know now, obviously, but you kind of think that this is going to be a miracle and sort it all out, but that was not the case. I also had a lot of ear infections when I was a child as well. So I would have severe earache, real bad sort of hearing and things like that. And I ended up having to go to an ear specialist for that, and I had grommets fitted as well, so that was an operation. I had adenoids taken out at the same time, because that's what they just like to do at that point in time. They just took bits out, even though it wasn't connected to my ears in any way. So that was gone, and the grommets sort of helped my hearing a little bit, helped clear sort of the wax from my ear, but not again, it was just another problem that was occurring. I then, a few years later, developed warts on my hands. We went to sort of down the conventional route of treating those, which, if anybody's ever been through this, you will know that's basically they freeze them off with liquid nitrogen. So as a very small child, you don't necessarily understand that that's what's going to happen. And I remember being taken to the specialist, and he got out his little flask and took the lid off, started steaming. I was like, oh lovely, he's going to give me some like warm cocoa or something, a little bit naive. Then he took his little cotton bud, shoved it on top of one of the warts, and I just literally screamed the place down. It was just so painful, because I wasn't really expecting it. He hadn't explained what he was going to do or anything until, like, I think I was about 7 years old at that time. So and so that was pretty painful, and very painful for my parents to experience that. They were really unhappy as well with the way that was dealt with. And so after that, I think the warts eventually kind of cleared up themselves, but then a few years later came back with a vengeance, just as I was about to start senior school, and were literally everywhere. And it's not possible. It wasn't possible to do the liquid nitrogen on my hands, so there was absolutely no way that was going to go down. But I needed to sort this out, which was when my mum started looking into alternative things, and we turned to homeopathy to help with that, and that really helped. My warts disappeared, and the that they cleared up. They've left some scars, but that's nothing really in comparison to what it was like. It's not a problem for me anymore. And so that was like my first little look into natural medicine and what it can do. And it was simple to do. It wasn't harmful at all. The only thing that I had to avoid was mint and coffee. I was like, brilliant, this is quite simple, really. So I had that treatment, and then a few years later I started developing tonsillitis quite regularly as well. Again, went down the conventional route, so my tonsils were removed, and then a few years later I started to develop UTIs. I kind of went into, sort of touched on these things in my first video, and they were quite frequent, so it was just continuous, one after the other. Again, conventional treatment, so you're sort of taking, so for the tonsillitis it was all antibiotics continuously. UTIs, it was just the over-the-counter medicine for that kind of stuff, and it just never really cleared it up at all. And that was the point where I was like, I have to draw a line under this. This is not possible. I can't live like this anymore. It's just medication after medication. You just feel rubbish. You can't really do anything. It was terrible. So I then sort of started to change different things. So trying to eat better, trying to make sure that I got nutrients that I needed. My skin was still bad. Along with all of these other things, obviously there was just a lot of creams as well. So topically I was putting on probably every single possible cream that was available, from Boots, anywhere, anything that I could find, I would try it and see if it made a difference or not. And there were certain creams that were really good. The ones that I found really, really helpful were ones that were made by really small companies, where it was either just a person making a cream, themselves, so you know what the ingredients are. Most of the things that I could buy from like Boots or somewhere like that, they've all got added things in them to like stabilizers and just added extras which aren't really necessary and don't really bring any benefit to the skin. So while some of these other creams were more expensive because it was being handmade by somebody, the benefit to my skin was just enormous. It was much better to do something like that. So after deciding that enough was enough, I needed to look inside and see how I could help myself, how I could heal. I took steps to see what I could do, basically. That led me to retraining in nutrition and to become a naturopath. So along that journey, my friends that have known me through that journey will know that I've changed quite a lot in that time. So I thought I would share with you things that I've tested on myself, really, because I thought if I'm going to be helping people, I need to have run through these things myself. I need to have experienced them. If I'm going to suggest that other people do these things, I need to know what it's like. I need to know how to do these things and see whether I get any benefit from them, to see if it's good to recommend. So one of the first things that I actually did was I looked into hair mineral analysis. So I was intrigued. I was like, well, I wonder if I've got like a toxic load or anything like that. And one of the ways to test that can be to take like a bit of your hair, normally from the sort of base here, send it off for analysis, and they can see whether there's things like arsenic or copper or an excess of something that you don't necessarily want an excess of in your system, because that can kind of cause havoc with your internal organs and things like that. So it's just something to sort of out of interest, really. So I did that. I didn't have anything that kind of came back, so there was nothing that was exceptionally high from like the really bad compounds, so like arsenic, things like that. But I had very high levels of calcium, like off the chart levels of calcium in my hair. So I was like, what's that all about? That's interesting. So that was like one little pointer that I'd got. Then I decided that I was going to do a DNA test, because I wanted to understand what my DNA makeup was. What are my genes sort of predisposed to do, and how are they predisposed to behave, basically. And also a DNA test can give you your recommended daily intake of vitamins and minerals as well, so depending on the ones that you do. So when I got that back, my report back, it was really interesting, because I looked at it and I saw that my my genes or my makeup really is I'm predisposed to not have a very good detoxification. So I was like, well, that's interesting. If I'm predisposed to not detoxify very well, then in my liver and things like that, then if I'm taking excess toxins in, I need to get them out in some way. If my liver's not coping, then my skin is taking over. So that just made sense to me. Doesn't mean to say that it's always going to be like that, but that's just I can make changes to it. It also showed that my recommended daily intake was pretty much double for every single vitamin and mineral that there is, basically. So for every processed piece of food that I'm eating that I'm getting no nutritional value from, so like your donuts and stuff like that, that is really detrimental to me. So I really needed to switch and make changes in my diet to make sure that everything I was eating was going to bring some positive value and be able to nourish my body more, which is a bit of a shame, because I'm partial to a bit of cake, but things can be worked out. So every so often I can have a bit of cake. So that was really, really interesting to be able to look into the DNA analysis and make changes, basically. So that was brilliant. Then I have done a live blood analysis as well, which is where they take a little bit of blood just from the end of your finger and pop that under the microscope, and then just have a look at all of the blood cells that are in that sample. Now, what you can see from that are the size of the red blood cells. You can see the size of, or you can see other little organisms in there. You can see bits of food. So if you've actually fasted before you have that analysis done, you can kind of see whether there's any food in the bloodstream which can be a cause of inflammation as well. So you can see all these things. You can also see white blood cells. You can see all sorts. It was absolutely fascinating. So I looked at that, and I could see when I did the analysis, it was I went to somebody to have that done, and what I found was that my blood was not very nourished. So what I mean by that is I'm putting all this food, this good food in, but it's not getting to where it needs to go. So my digestion was a problem. So what's happening as the food's kind of going through, it's not being broken down properly. It's not actually extracting the nutrients from that food that my body needs. A lot of people assume that if you just eat the good food, then you're going to get the goodness out of it. But it's not what we eat, it's what we actually assimilate. It's what we actually break it down to, the individual bits. And can our body actually utilise those? As it turns out, mine wasn't really doing a very good job. So not only do I need pretty much double what most people need from the recommended daily allowance of your vitamins and minerals, but while I'm actually piling all of that good food in, I'm then not getting it from it anyway, or only a small portion of it. So it's like it basically gone from a hill to climb to a mountain to climb. So then I needed to look at my internal, so look at what's going on with my digestion. So for a long while I'd been learning about sort of colonics and things like that and how beneficial they are, and I'd be like, oh god, no, I don't think I could do that. That's just a bit weird, isn't it, really? And it's just like, oh, it takes a while to get your head around it. So I thought, just, maybe this is going to be what you need to do. So just sort of faced it, thought, I'm going to book in, I'm going to do it. And so I went for a treatment. So I actually did a set of treatments, so 4 treatments, with the Colchester Clinic out near where I live. Absolutely lovely lady, Natalie, who did the treatments for me. And she sort of explained everything, was really, 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 really nice, very patient, and it was great to have the treatments and find out a little bit more about what was going on. And during that time that I was having those treatments, I found that I actually had a overgrowth of bacteria, which needed to be sorted out. So I'm actually in the process of sorting that out at the moment. So I'm taking some probiotics every day, and that is getting better. I had some quite sort of severe changes, so I had a lot of bloating and things like that while the treatments were going on. But because of my background, I understand that you can have a healing crisis. So when you're kind of dealing with what needs to be dealt with, symptoms can get worse before they get better. So I understand this, and so I was fine with that. It didn't concern me. I just kind of carried on. So now I finished those treatments and felt absolutely fantastic. So I have absolutely no hesitation in recommending it to my clients going forward. And then I decided that now that bit, so now my the colon has been sorted out. I'm taking the probiotics for that. I need to look at my liver, my kidneys, and just kind of make sure that they are functioning as well as they can function. So after years of probably eating what I shouldn't have been eating, drinking, and alcohol is not great either. and just sort of maybe cleaning up a little bit. So I decided that I was going to do a kidney flush, and then I was going to do a liver flush as well. So I've completed the kidney flush, which is basically where you kind of drink a lemon juice and cayenne pepper mixture in the morning, and that's sort of like, I did that over 5 days, and then I followed that with the liver flush, and that is again another mixture. I think I mentioned that on one of my other videos. So it was apple juice, half a pint of apple juice, lemon juiced, olive oil, garlic and ginger. And that's all blitzed up, and then you drink that, and then following you have like a couple of pints of detox tea, and you don't eat for a couple of hours, and you do that first thing in the morning. So it's a bit time consuming, but I'm going through that at the moment. So I'm due to finish doing the liver flush on Sunday. What I have noticed is that my skin has decided to get quite dry, and so I've got very, very dry skin at the moment, but I have noticed some sort of positive changes really. So where it's gone dry now, it went dry quite quickly, but it's now starting to regenerate and kind of start to look a lot better. So I'll be interested to see what happens when I finish that on Sunday. And what else have I been doing? Creams. So creams that I use now for my skin, I only use creams that are made with organic ingredients predominantly, and are as natural as possible, because what you put on your skin is so quickly absorbed into your bloodstream, and I don't want any extra chemicals that my body, my liver specifically, has to actually process those chemicals to get them out of my system. Well, I'm just not going to put them in there in the first place, because I've already worked out that I've got a problem with, not a problem, but it doesn't function as well as it should do. So I need to look out for all these things. So for me, I've switched to organic creams, and again, they make my skin feel fantastic because they've got essential oils in them. They've got all these good stuff that actually feed the skin, and it makes it happy. That's what I want. I want happy skin. So I thought I would share all this with you, just so that you've got a bit of an idea of the things that I work with. So a couple of other bits as well. So I would use Bach flower remedies, which is a very, very good technique to use with any emotional issues that are related to eczema. So I've used that on myself, been sort of making up different Bach flower remedies if I've been feeling a bit down, a bit sad, things like that, identifying what the problems are, mixing myself a little remedy, and that just brings me back out of whatever's going on. So that's been absolutely brilliant, and I've been making those up for friends and family as well, and they've been having really positive results with those. And using homeopathy at times, using tissue salts as well. That's another method of being able to, another natural method of sort of helping yourself as well. So there's all these different options when it comes to healing and helping yourself to get to the place that you want to get to. So I know this was a long video. Well done for anybody that's got to the end of it. I'm sorry about that if I've been a bit rambly, but it was worth sharing that with you, just so that you can understand that it's not all about creams, and there are loads and loads of different things that we can look into to work out what's going on with you. I've had a long journey of working out what's going on with me and working out how I work as a machine, really. What's the sort of sticking points, what's the bottlenecks, where are my problems, and how do I address those? So if this has been interesting for you, if you've taken anything away from it, drop me a message, let me know. That would be fantastic. And I hope to catch you soon. All right. Cheers, guys. Bye.